Hello, welcome to the weekly Spark video. Last week I did some watercolor backgrounds, which maybe a layer, maybe a back, maybe covered up completely. But those are dry. I'm going to pick two of those, and I'm going to put another layer on them. The other two I'm going to save for something else. But I do like to layer different things and have all different materials in a piece, whether it be watercolor, collage, paint, direct marks with a marker. So I kind of like that variety, and I like something in the piece that shows my hand in the piece, whether it's brushwork, marks made with some kind of crayon, pencil, marker, etc. So this layer today that I want to work with is collage. And I have a drawer in one of my storage units in the studio that's just filled with scrap paper. It's actually where the small scraps of paper go, because I have the bigger scraps in a different envelope. So I'm going to flip the camera around and just show you this drawer and pull out some different scraps of paper. Where are they from? Well, they're collected from all different projects, from mixed media collage to art journaling to bookbinding. And although every once in a while I do a clean out and I toss the scraps and start fresh, I know that sounds terrible, they build up and they can get in the way, and they can be an impediment to work. So I like to keep them in a container, and if the container gets too full, then some of it has to be kind of purged out. So currently my drawer is pretty full, and I'm trying to work on using some of it in pieces of late. So let me turn the camera around and then we'll get started. How to decide? Well, I'm going to definitely pick this one because there is this kind of large area where the paint didn't do very many exciting things. So that is calling out to me as wanting to be collaged. So if that's one of the loose ones, let me pick one of the ones that are taped down. This is tougher because there's more interesting stuff going on in the paint. So I'm going to save this one. I don't normally work in this complementary color palette, and this is interesting to me. It's I want to look at that, stare at that for a while and see what happens. So we've got this kind of mellow one with the grays and the neutrals, and this with the blues and the purple, magenta colors. All right. So I will set those just off to the side where you can be reminded of what we're looking for. Okay, so here I've brought in my drawer of scrap paper, and it has even everything in it, lace, old encyclopedia paper. Those of you who know me may know I have an entire set of Encyclopedia Britannica from the late 60s that was in my family, and so I use a lot of this real thin text paper. I use it often because I have all of the volumes. I don't think I'll ever run out. This was paste paper made in my book arts group, bookbinding. Some marbleized paper. Let's use that scrap instead. This fibery paper is very see-through. That's just from the craft store, printed with kind of suns and compass patterns. So you see already that I'm pulling things that are a little bit harmonious with the colors that are on the page. That doesn't have to be. That's kind of my starting point. So I have 400 times more paper than I'm going to need. But it was just that kind of first intuitive look through, pulling out things that maybe could work. I did start out with things that were very much in a analogous color palette to my watercolors. But then I did start to pull in some other things, some complementary things. So for this one, I like that. Maybe those are what I want to use. This is, oh, look at that. I didn't even see the other side of that. Maybe that's what I want to use. This has a little purpley tones in it. Okay. And again, that's narrowing it down, but I still might not use all of that. On this one, I like this because this paste paper has some of these kind of reddish purpley colors in it, but then it goes teal. So the other paper selections I've just slid away in case I want to come back. Now, this collage doesn't have a focal point yet. It doesn't have a direction. This is the one that I did leave a little extra on in case I wanted to write a word in there. So I kind of like that. That's fun. My personal preference is not to use a lot of straight edges. If I use a straight edge, I often put it on a straight edge on the border of a piece and then like tear the top edge. So I'd be more likely to do that and have that top edge. Then I also have this other piece. It makes, now I start thinking about composition, like where things are going to go. There's a strong diagonal in the watercolor, so I want to balance that out with some other directions. This paper has a torn edge where it's come out of a book. So sometimes I'm contradicting myself. Sometimes I do want a straight edge. What if I want an element okay, but I like that color better. What if I want this to be a really strong vertical element? Use this fuzzy paper on this side. So I do like this strong vertical to help change this strong diagonal. But before I glue anything down, I want to kind of flip it around and see if I like it better going the other way. So this tan paper with the torn decal edge kind of dissolves into this watercolor color over here on that edge, and I kind of like that. And the thing that I want to remind myself is that this is a stage in the process, but that I'm not trying to resolve everything. So if I left it like this with these pieces glued down, then I'd be adding something else to this area later. It's going to need something like curvy, since there's straight and horizontal and vertical. So it's going to need something kind of curvy and more dynamic later on. But I'm going to glue those things there. There's a little teal in this, which is a surprise. I'm going to glue those things there and call that. Yep. Now, because this is watercolor underneath, I don't really want to go crazy with putting a lot of gel medium on the watercolor background. So I'm actually going to use some glue stick, because that should work fine for this layer. I could also, apply gel medium to the back of these scraps of paper and then position them in place. I'll do some of each. Okay. And then once they are dry, I'll trim the edges where they stick out past the tape. I do like to use glue stick with the thinner papers a lot. Because it's plenty of adhesive action to glue them down, but they don't get so soggy and, more fragile. This marbleized paper does bring in some curly designs and a little bit of the teal, so it relates to this, and it definitely makes me think that I want to include some kind of curvy line also. Sorry, I was a little out of frame there. In the future, more curvy line. So that one I'm going to set aside to dry until another Weekly Spark video. All right, let's see what we have. That scrap. I used that paper. Let's try and keep it different. This is more exciting over here, but there's a lot over here. And sometimes I just use the scraps as is. Sometimes that's what inspires me. That right there, I may just leave. This piece, I feel the need to tear the edges. Looks like the state of Arkansas. I like the two of these layered together. So this creates an awkward space right here where there's that triangle created from everything overlapping. So that's not ideal. I don't think I like the brown. But I do think I like the purple. Okay, this is going to be my basic configuration. I know it's hard to see with the paper curling up, but I really like this piece. It's a little warmer, and I might be okay if I lose some of that magenta. I like that warmer tone. So yeah, it's covering up more of the piece, but I'm okay with that. I liked this color and found a different scrap and just had different shapes to use. So the only thing with this one is that I'm layering a lot of the paper, so I want to make sure to get things glued down in the right order. So I think that was pretty close to where I'd originally placed things. But yeah, I like this border down here of the watercolor. I'm not as much in love with the magenta, so that might be something that I draw over later. A little bit of the magenta here on the edge is kind of a nice eye-catching pop. But we'll see. I don't have any plans for this yet. I knew I wanted to collage on them. Everything's pretty sticky now. So I'm going to let these dry. Let me grab the camera real quick. So there's stage 2 of a collage, just really spontaneous, responding to what I have on the paper with what I have in the studio and just kind of being playful, not having a definite plan, but seeing what looks good and trusting my intuition, trusting my sense of color, trusting my preferences. So hopefully that will spark something and you can take that to the page. See you next time.